Hello everybody, hope you're good. So this video is about the cycle of emotional abuse. Now, it's really useful to identify the fact that there is actually a cycle to this. And when I realized that there was a cycle, it was like a light bulb going on for me. It was like I'd been in the dark all of the time and that I hadn't realized that this was actually strategic and there were steps to this cycle. It wasn't just random. It wasn't just two people arguing or having a disagreement. It was actually something that repeated many, many times over. And once I identified as well that there was a cycle, it became easier to predict what was going to happen as well. And it also brought me some relief that actually none of this was my fault at all. It was something that had been orchestrated and that it was a technique that was being conducted and carried out in order to control me. So it helped me in loads of ways to identify the cycle of emotional abuse. So where does it start? I have some notes here which I'm going to refer to because I don't want to miss a step out. So initially, the first step in the cycle is tension. You can feel the tension starting to build, and it might be building due to external factors like, say, money, work, family, anything out of the realms of you, yourself, or the other person. There are going to be external factors. Or it can just be that the abusive person is getting bored, that they need some supply, that they haven't been validated for a long time, that you haven't reacted for a long time. They feel like they're maybe losing control in some way. So they start to build the tension. You can feel this. This is the feeling of walking on eggshells. It's the feeling of feeling really, really tense, like something is going to happen. And it is, because the person who's the abusive person is getting ready to trigger you. So at this point, when the tension's building, you feel super uncomfortable. You go into people-pleasing behavior because at your core, even if you haven't identified yet that this is a cycle, you know that something's going to happen. You can feel it, you can sense it. So you start all of these maladaptive behaviors, and there's no judgment here because I've totally done this, and you start trying to pander to the person. You start to make things okay and avoid the trigger moment because it's scary and it's not very nice, and you start to do what you can to please them. And when you look back in the future, you might blame yourself for this, and you might think that you shouldn't have pandered to them and you shouldn't have given as much of yourself away. But remember that at this time, you don't know that it's a cycle and you don't know that you're being controlled. You just know that you feel super uncomfortable and you want to avoid the consequence, which you know is inevitably coming. So the tension builds, and that can take hours, days, weeks, whatever the cycle is, and you'll identify how long the cycle usually takes. In my experience, it was 4 to 6 weeks it would usually take, and then it would happen again. So after the tension has built, there's an incident or a trigger. Now the trigger is the abuser using something like gaslighting or baiting, so they get a response from you. They're looking for a rise. They're looking for something that will go bang. They're looking for some kind of result or drama. And then once they've baited you or triggered you or made things super, super difficult for you, so you're really, really stressed and anxious, that is when the insults will come, the argument, the explosion, the disagreement, the whole drama of, well, you always do this and it's happened again and this is your pattern, and all of the insults are thrown at you. Things will actually go bang. They will deflect, they'll blame, they'll shame, they'll name call you. This is the moment when the hand grenade, they've pulled the pin out and they've thrown it in, and this is the moment when it all explodes, the argument, the row, the incident, the trigger. And then you, or me talking about myself, will get really, really upset. You'll not really know what's happened. You've tried to avoid all of this. You've probably for weeks been walking on eggshells, and then suddenly it happens anyway. And it seems to have happened over something that was nothing, but now it's a massive thing, and now everything's exploded. And then they blame you. They totally turn it around and they blame you for setting them off, for doing A, B or C, for going out with your friends when they wanted to do something couplesy, for speaking to them in a particular tone, for not putting them first or not backing them up, or whatever it is, whatever they've picked on. And it's usually nothing of any substance at all. It's just something that they're latching onto in order to create drama. They will blame you for all of it, and they will take no responsibility at all. And that is really upsetting. It makes you super anxious and stressed and upset. And then what they do is, the next part of the cycle is the punishment side. So what they'll start to do is they will have their punishment of choice, whether it's ignoring you, whether it's threatening to leave, moving their stuff into the spare bedroom, withholding love and affection, going out with their friends and not being in contact with you at all. Whatever their punishment, their favourite punishment is, that's when this cycle starts. So first of all, there's the tension building, or the boredom, or the need for validation. Then there's the trigger or the incident where the drama happens and it all goes bang. Really exhausting, emotionally mangling argument, row, disagreement. You'll be left thinking, what the hell just happened there? They'll turn it all around and blame you and then punish you. And the punishment can last for as long as they choose. So again, it might be days, it might be hours, it might be days, it might be weeks, it might even be longer. And this is the time where even you know at your core it's not your fault. You start to engage in more people-pleasing behaviour, and you start to try and win them back because you feel totally rubbish. You're absolutely wrecked, and you do everything that you can in order to please them and say sorry and get them back on side, even though probably in the moment, and certainly with reflection, you know it's not your fault, but you still engage in that behaviour. And again, that is something that later on you might look back and beat yourself up for, but it's ingrained, it's learned, it's a cycle. So it's all you know how to do at that point to survive. And you really want peace, and you want relief, and you want things to be okay again in the house, in the relationship. You want that relief, so you do all you can to get things back on track. And they will maintain this punishment as long as they feel they want to. And it might even just be short one-word answers. It might be really passive-aggressive behaviour. It might be making a cup of tea or coffee for them and not you. It's so subtle, but it's there, and you know it's there. And then when they've decided that you've worked your way back into favour and that you're going to be let off the hook, that is when the reconciliation phase starts in the cycle. So you are finally forgiven, you're back in favour, they come and sleep in your bed again, you might have sex, you might get a gift, they might offer to cook. You know, you're kind of forgiven for your ridiculous behaviour, and things are back on track, and they become the hero because, you know, they've accepted you back, and then you're relieved, and all of those happy hormones start to flood through you because you've got that relief. It's kind of a reward that they're giving you because now you're under control again, you've done what they said, you've engaged in all the people-pleasing behaviour, and you've apologised, you've made it all your fault, you've accepted it, when actually none of it was your fault, but this is just the easiest route to peace. And you know in the cycle that if you play the game, that you're going to be able to get that relief, and the peace is going to come back, especially if you've got children into the household. It's a massive relief. So you're finally forgiven, you're back in favour, oxytocin and dopamine are flying around your body, you're starting to feel happier and relieved, and you start to feel a bit more connected. They let you back in, and because they've isolated you as well from everyone else in your world, when they do let you back in, it's a relief because they're one of the only people that you've got. So it's so subtle, but it's also a definite abuse tactic and a cycle. So the reconciliation happens, the love bombing starts to happen to some degree, and there's a period of calm, isn't there? But During that period of calm, you can never fully relax. You will find, usually, if you've been a victim of emotional abuse, that you've got a background anxiety all of the time, even if it's a low level anxiety, because you know at any point during that period of calm, the tension's going to start to build again. The eggshells are going to be back. They're going to get bored. They're going to need validation. They're going to need some drama. They're going to need you back under control, because heaven forbid you start to do your own thing, get your own life, go out with your friends, do what you please. So they will start to just keep you under control, and the tension will start to build again. So even in the periods of calm and the periods when you feel quite settled, you're never really calm. You're always on alert, and it creates this horrible fight or flight response where you're ready in any moment to react. And that is exhausting, and it can lead to burnout, and it's also just a horrible, chewed up, nasty, angsty feeling for you to live with. So the cycle will start again, the tension will start to build, there'll be a trigger, and off you go again. So that is the cycle of emotional abuse and the way that it happens. And by recognizing that this is a cycle, it's loads easier for you to forgive yourself for the people-pleasing part of it. And also, the fact that there's a chemical reaction in you makes it really addictive, because it feels so good and such a relief when finally they forgive you and let you back into favor, that it's something we start to crave when it's repeated many, many, many times. And we get chemically addicted to it, the ups and the downs, and we also get emotionally and psychologically addicted to it as well. So identifying that it's a pattern shows us that we've been controlled in all of those ways, and it helps us to have a lot more self-compassion and understanding. It helps us to release negative feelings that we might have about ourselves, such as guilt and shame, when we do finally see that it is a cycle, and we can forgive that former version of ourselves much more easily, because we understand that actually at that time we were trapped in a cycle that was being enforced on us by someone else in order to control us. So I hope that helps. I'm sure as you're looking back over the cycles that occurred in your situation, that you will be able to identify those different aspects. So just to recap, creating tension, walking on eggshells, allowing that tension to build. Then there's an incident and a trigger where it all goes bang. Then that's turned around to be your fault, and they will take no responsibility for it. So then they go into the punishment phase, where they'll ignore you, they'll withhold love and affection, stonewall you. This is when you're starting to work your way back into favour and trying to make things good again. And then when they've decided the punishment phase has been long enough and they've got you back under control because of all this people pleasing that you're exhibiting, that's when there's a reconciliation. You feel this relief, all the happy hormones start to flow, there's a little bit of love bombing going on from them. They've forgiven you. Oh, okay, it's okay, I love you anyway, I forgive you. The calm period begins, but in the background there's always the opportunity for that tension to start to build again, and so the cycle begins. So I hope that's been useful and illuminating for you, and I'll see you soon. Okay, lots of love.